Hi everyone and welcome to this webinar. We're very excited to be here with you today and thank you so much for logging in and joining us here. It's the LivingWorks Start Online Training Australian webinar launch. And I've got to say I've been looking forward to this for quite a long time, so I'm really excited about today and very keen to tell you about what's going on. So to begin, of course, we want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're coming from today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation here in Sydney. But also acknowledge all of the traditional lands that we're dialing in from today. We've got people from all over Australia and indeed the world. And of course, pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. So today, what's in store? We're going to tell you a lot about LivingWorks Start. My name's Shane Connell. I'm the National Director of LivingWorks Australia, and it's a pleasure to be here with you. We have Julie Heraghty from Suicide Prevention Australia, who's also going to be talking soon. And on a live feed, actually from Calgary, because we're just that advanced, is Tegan Jones, who's our service implementation and delivery specialist. And she's going to be telling us a little bit more later on today. So a few things for this webinar. You can see in the top right corner of your screen a resource centre, and there's some documents there you'll be able to download as we go through. We're also going to be running a poll because we want to ask you some questions and see your views and your, I guess, attitudes towards online training and LivingWorks Start in particular. We're also going to be showing you a video soon and some examples and some ideas of what LivingWorks Start looks like. We've really had unprecedented interest, I've got to say, in this program. We've been fielding a lot of questions internationally and both here in our LivingWorks Australia office. So I'm really keen to answer the questions that you have, and so please type your questions through and we'll address them as we go or get to them at the end as well. So we're here to talk about the new online training, but I'm also really aware that we've got quite a lot of people here who maybe don't know much about LivingWorks. So I'll tell you a little bit about us in a moment. But to begin with, we're going to start with a poll straight off the bat. And so you can see there on your screen in a moment, the question you'll be asked is, have you actually had a chance to do or to complete LivingWorks Start training yet? Just want to get a sense of all of you who have joined us in the audience, how many people have logged on and done the training. We've certainly been receiving quite a lot of feedback so far, and so keen to see how many people have had a chance to have a look at it. We'll leave that up just for a minute if you want to answer that question, and we'll let you know the results. But I guess, first of all, welcome to all of our stakeholders. We've got quite a lot of trainers who have joined us today, so LivingWorks trainer from across Australia. We've got sector stakeholders, obviously, and organisations who are interested in looking at this program. So thank you for joining us. I know we've got people also abroad, so in the UK, New Zealand, US and Canada who have joined us as well. So thank you for being here. I guess some of you who are new to LivingWorks, a little bit about us. So LivingWorks Education is we call ourselves the leading organisation in suicide prevention training. We've been around for 35 years. And it's quite an interesting start for us. So in the late 70s, LivingWorks began out of the University of Calgary and really became the pioneer organisation for gatekeeper training, before gatekeeping training was even a thing or a word or a term that we used. And in fact, it was the United Nations, I believe, in early 80s who worked with LivingWorks to look at, could a community gatekeeper training model work to be able to train people in a broader community to have skills to be able to intervene, to keep people safe. So it's a huge body of evidence of work that has gone into the programs that we all, well, I certainly love, and I know many people out there are very passionate about our training. So if you've heard of the Applied Suicide Intervention Skills Training Program, ASIST, Safe Talk, Suicide to Hope, then you know who we are. We're the developers and designers of those models, and now obviously adding LivingWorks Start to that portfolio. A little bit of stats, and I will go to that poll in a moment. So look, it looks like about 10% of us have done Start so far, which is great news actually, because there's a lot of people here who are keen to know more. So if you've done Start, let us know your thoughts through the comments, and if you haven't, then I'm glad you're here. So we have around 600 trainers who are trained to deliver LivingWorks programs throughout Australia, and about 8,000 internationally. So we're in 37 countries at the moment and hit a really important milestone of 2 million people trained globally not too long ago. We've also trained 200,000 people in Australia with these skills, which feels like a big number, but
big.
Really it is big. But really, in the scheme of things, if you compare it to CPR training, to physical first aid training, it's actually just a dip in the ocean, really, for what we would need on a population level to be able to have the skills required to keep people safe from suicide. If you imagine if we only had, such a small percentage, less than 5% of the community trained in physical first aid, we would be pushing as hard as we could to make sure that people had those skills to support someone if they're going into cardiac arrest. We believe the same thing for thoughts of suicide and for doing suicide intervention. So we're based in Tuggerah on the central coast of New South Wales. We have 9 staff across Australia, but of course many more connections throughout the country. And I guess what we're known for, what we think we're known for is the quality of our programs. And so that's why it's so good to have you here, Julie, to talk about quality innovation, because innovation being part of the LivingWorks Start idea and concept. We have a really huge body of evidence. So our evidence base is around now, I think we've just cracked the 50 plus peer supported or peer-reviewed journal articles, which is huge and something we're very proud of. And of course, we would like to think that our training is very engaging. It certainly was when I first did it. So I started at LivingWorks in this role a year ago today. Actually, it's my 1-year anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I started as a trainer in 2003, and I was working for Lifeline at the time, and so a nice shout out to our Lifeline trainers out there. And I did the ASIST workshop as part of that training, and it really changed my life, but it changed my perception of doing work in this field. It was quite engaging. It was like no other training that I'd done before. And it was skills-based, so I'd done a lot of awareness work, saw a lot of statistics and had that awareness piece around, what should we do around mental illness and mental health and also suicide prevention. But I hadn't had the chance yet to really hone my skills, and that's what I did with ASIST. And I've been a champion of it ever since. To give you an idea of what that means to me, it's a little bit like that analogy between awareness and intervention or skills training is a little bit like CPR as well. So if you go along to learn how to do CPR, you're not sitting in a classroom for half a day or 2 days listening to a lecturer tell you how to perform CPR. They get the dummies out on the ground and you're down there, practicing your skills and learning mouth to mouth and all those things that you do for resuscitation. And for me, that's where LivingWorks sits in this space, is that we are skills training, so people get the chance to practice and hone and develop the skills that they need to be able to help. So that's a little bit about us. Did you know much about us before, Julie?
I didn't know as much as you've told me. The statistics are amazing, and congratulations on what you've done and what you're achieving, and also for your passion and commitment.
Sure. Thanks very much. And I should say congratulations on your role, because you've been with Suicide Prevention Australia for 4 months now.
4 months.
Right? As a Director of Quality Innovation.
Yes.
Nice
Thank you.
So we'll have a chance, I guess, we'll come to you in a moment if we can, Julie, just to talk a little bit about your role and the importance of quality and innovation in this sector. I've got to say, so I was on the board of Suicide Prevention Australia in 2004, going back some time now. And wow, has that organisation changed and really evolved in a great way. But what I've seen as well, coming back to the sector after being out of it for some time, is how the sector has really banded together and how the sector has grown, particularly around things like quality and collaboration. So that's it's a great thing to see.
Thank you.
Okay, so in terms of the LivingWorks Start program, I'm just going to give you a quick overview, and I'll show you a couple of slides now on the screen around how this program fits into the overall model of the training. So we did some research and review of the community development model in terms of suicide intervention training. And this is something we do as a matter of course. We're continually improving and iterating our programs. To give you an idea, ASIST, for example, is up to version 11.1. So, we certainly don't develop a program and then rest on its own laurels. So as you can see there on the slide, it's training that empowers everyone to play a role. We knew that we needed an integrated training solution. What that means is not just having people do a training program and thinking that everything's done, but having a role for everyone to play, really. We wanted to get better at sharing data and gathering that data and having a strategic solution for communities of people to be able to keep folks safe, which is our comprehensive population approach. And so there were 4 things that we really wanted within this new population approach of ours. We needed it to be role-based, so our training needs to be role-based so that anyone in the community can contribute. To give you an idea, not everyone is able to do ASIST, for example, or is able to deliver an intervention. So what about others? How can they contribute? And what is the training that's available for them? We needed it to be integrated so that all roles work together, which means that people who come into a Safe Talk training or a Start training are able to connect and refer to the ASIST trained helpers. It needs to be community-wide, of course, so we can't just train people at work, because people don't just die by suicide at work. It's where they live, work, play and learn. And so how do we take a community approach that broadens the context of where people learn skills? And of course, it needs to have a safety network, so it spans across the community. Now, I'm a little bit of a geek when it comes to this stuff, I've got to tell you. So this next slide's something that really, I've got to say, it got me going. I was really, really happy with this. And it's something that I just want to talk through briefly. So this is the continuum of safety skills model for us. And you can see on the left here, it has the depth of the skill that's developed. And you can see all of our programs, from everything from suicide talk, which is the very brief 1 hour awareness introduction, right through to this new program Start, Safe Talk Assist and Suicide Hope. And what you can see is that there's been quite a lot of depth of thought that's gone into the design and development of these pieces so that they fit together along this continuum, right from awareness through to identifying people with thoughts of suicide, engaging with them, understanding their choices, creating safety, obviously planning and recovery and growth. So you can see there on the slide, LivingWorks Start, the role there is about being a safety starter, so obviously starting the conversation. And it sits right across that idea of moving on from awareness into identifying people with thoughts of suicide, engaging with them, and then connecting to help. So Tegan will tell us a little bit more in a moment about how that fits into the broader picture. As you can see, those Safe Talk trainers or participants out there, you can see how Safe Talk really builds on that work as a suicide alert training program. And then obviously ASIST, which is the flagship for us, really cuts across right through to safety planning, which is such an important piece. So as I say, I love that. I just think that really builds that picture of how it works together.
Very good.
So just finally for me, the last slide I wanted to show you was this idea of when you're training, 200,000 people, if you like, in Safe Talk or Assist, it's a really huge number of people and it takes a lot of work. But what we found is that you can only impact or you can only support those people who are around you, who you come into contact with. Mm-hmm. And so, the large gold circle you can see on the screen there, if you like, representing ASIST. We love it when there are 30 new ASIST-trained caregivers in any community, be it Tamworth or Perth or Bunbury or Darwin, wherever that is. But what if we could really expand that impact? What if we could add to that network our existing Safe Talk trainers and participants, and then allow those people to go into their community and have others who are trained in LivingWorks Start, so the real foundational skills, so that you can broaden out this network of safety where people, as you see, work, live, play and learn. And so that's our idea, and it really changes the way that we talk to communities, to universities, to hospitals, schools and others about how they can roll out these training programs. So we'll leave that one there for now, and I'll just see if there's any questions coming through. We'll throw those in a minute. But what I might do, Julie, is ask you to speak a little bit about your role, because it's quite a nice tie-in, I think, thinking about the innovation and quality piece into your role as the director of that for Suicide Prevention Australia.
Thank you, Shane.
I've got a lovely intro here for you. Can I do that for you?
Oh,
Let's tell people who you are, because you're new to the organisation, and some people might not know. So Julie is the Director of Quality Innovation for Suicide Prevention Australia. She's been there for 4 months, is that right?
Correct.
And prior to joining the organisation, Julie served for 13 years as the CEO of the Macular Disease Foundation of Australia. Under Julie's leadership, the foundation evolved into a world leader in awareness of macular degeneration and a major provider of funding for research for the eye disease. And I've got to say, I heard a lot more in the last 13 years about macular degeneration than I ever did, so it might be part of your leadership, I'm sure. Julie's career began as a secondary school teacher and school psychologist. And prior to joining the foundation, she spent over 7 years as a policy advisor to New South Wales state ministers and also served as a director and manager in major government departments. And this is another piece that Julie just told me the other day as we were preparing for this webinar, and I thought it was amazing. So in 2013, Julie was awarded a fellowship to the Harvard Business School to study strategic perspectives for not-for-profits. That must have been amazing. How was that?
It was amazing. I learned so much, and knowledge that I apply every day in my working life. So, and maybe that's a good segue into one of the models I did learn at Harvard, and has really helped me in everything I've done in my working life, as I said, and especially in this role in quality and innovation. I sort of see a strategic focus on quality and innovation with 3 circles. The first is the mission. And I've no doubt that in the sector, the primary mission is the prevention of suicide in Australia. I think all of our sector is very focused, as well as government, on that particular area. A second circle of influence is really the support that we get for that. Whether we get it from government, whether we get it from, in our role as a peak body, whether we get that from our members, government, non-members, the sector, support's very important to achieving your mission. And it is for an organisation like you. You get support from the members that you have or the people who participate in your programs. And the third area is capacity. Your capacity to meet your mission. When all three, your mission, your capacity and your support are aligned, that's the one most important thing I learned at Harvard, you have almost a perfect program. And just watching your delivery there, Shane, on LivingWorks, I was applying my little strategic framework and I was seeing a very clear mission, the capacity that you've built in your program development and the support that you have in making this program meet that mission. And so when I look at the role I've taken up in Suicide Prevention Australia, I think the mission is very clear. The support that we have in quality and innovation drive is through our membership in the sector and government and a whole range of organisations. But the goal is in that capacity area. And to date, we've done an enormous amount through the research fund, the Suicide Prevention Research Fund, to underpin that capacity in research that's going to be applied into the community to make sure that we're meeting that mission. And the other area is looking at programs for evidence base. What's their evidence base component? And it's very good to be able to say that you're listed on our hub as one of those programs that has undergone that process of evaluation. So to answer your question, the role now I see in this area is to really support the sector in quality improvement. How can we, with organisations such as yourself and a whole range of others that need that support, how can we provide that to have quality programs? Because that's a key component of our mission.
It must be a challenge. It strikes me as really interesting that as a peak body, Suicide Prevention Australia is taking that view and that perspective of really driving quality and innovation and supporting member organisations to take that journey, if you like. But it can't be easy. There must be a lot of challenge in understanding where the quality measures are and the evidence base. We all talk about having an evidence base, I think, and understand the importance of that. But evidence isn't evidence, right? There's a lot of different levels and quality of evidence. How do you go about understanding that space? And
I think in the short time that we've been doing this, phase one was really targeted at the high end, of looking at very probably program logic, evidence-based, pretty high. The bar was set pretty high and you jumped many of those bars. But I think now we need to flip that around and maybe look at a whole range of other areas in quality and effectiveness. Effectiveness is one, quality is the other. Workforce training. How can we support the sector in making sure that the journey they're on is going to be of the highest value for those programs? And we need to work with the sector to work that through. So phase one, we've really done, but it's a good question because that's where we're headed to that. And we need that because, of commissioning organisations, of the community, requiring to be able to have that transparency of, gee, look where organisations are at. Look what they're achieved. I think someone said to me this morning, but where are we at with suicide prevention in Australia? When you look at research, when you look at organisations such as yourselves and the amazing programs that are being delivered, and you look at the community and what they're trying to achieve with the partnership of government, I think we're heading in the right direction, and our job is to support that in advocacy and quality and innovation.
Yeah, it feels like there's a real global leadership piece there too for the work that you're doing. So part of the work at LivingWorks that we've been doing over the last 12 months is, and certainly much further beyond past that, was was working with some of our local neighbours in this region of the world to support them to pick up really quality programs and quality initiatives in suicide prevention. So in the Southeast Asian area, we've been training in Korea and Japan for many years, Singapore, Hong Kong. But we have more countries in that space coming in. And I really like that idea that by Australia leading that charge, if you like, or leading that push to ensure that the sector is striving to quality in whatever initiative that is or program that we're talking about, that then allows us then to support other countries who are looking to us for certain leadership, or to LivingWorks, for example, to running training, that flows on further than just our borders.
Yes, there are no borders in suicide prevention. We have a worldwide global commitment to this mission. And if we can work with our sector to make sure that we better the programs, that we have good standards, that we can measure what we're doing and that we can evaluate, I think we can share that with the world. We can definitely share it with the world because the purpose is very clear.
Absolutely. I'm just looking, Julie, we've got a couple of questions come through that I might just quickly ask or answer some of those. So someone has asked, how do we access LivingWorks Start? It's a great question, easy one off the bat. Thank you for that. So if you go to livingworks.net/start, you'll be able to see the introduction there, and you'll be able to log on and purchase a licence to do the training, or to find out more information, or to put an inquiry through. So thank you very much for that. Julie, I'm interested in, I guess, just exploring a little bit more about the future of your role at SPA and where things are headed. What's next, I guess, or what's coming down the line for you?
Well, we've been doing a lot of work in looking at evaluation, how organisations evaluating their work. We're looking at the needs of the sector. It's fine to go down a track of quality improvement, but various organisations are at various stages. You mentioned you're up to 11.1. It's not a static process, it's a dynamic process. So part of those three circles I talked to you about was support, engagement. So part of what we want to do is engage the sector in the discussion of where are organisations up to in that quality improvement at various levels? What are the needs? How can we support people and how support organisations? And what definitive areas are we going to really have to focus upon? Very different for small organisations too, maybe out in regional areas that have different needs, different support needs. So providing guidelines, providing information and support is going to be fun, and ultimately leading to webinars such as this. Being able to communicate with people and meet their needs in terms of education is going to be a primary area. So that's the goal that we've got.
Nice. Thanks very much.
Yeah,
glad
thank you.
Glad you're here, and glad that you're taking that role and that lead for the sector. So thanks so much for that.
Well, it's really a pleasure, and to date I have just been coming from a disease state with the eyes, very sort of clear way to do things. It's been a real pleasure to meet this a sector that has got so much enthusiasm, so much commitment, and really wants to have that quality program development. I mean, when I look at what your program is doing and what LivingWorks is doing, and I'm really, it's really an honour to work in the sector, and I'm very much looking forward to all the next little work that you're doing also, because we're partners.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
And as part of that partnership, we should mention, so LivingWorks will be one of the sponsors and a key presenter at the Suicide Prevention Australia Conference coming up in Melbourne from the 23rd to the 25th of July. Obviously, you'll be there, Julie, and speaking to members. We're going to just put a quick poll up now, because we want to invite people, if you're going to be at the SPA conference, the Suicide Prevention Australia Conference, in Melbourne, let us know, because we'd love to talk to you. We're going to have an opportunity to preview LivingWorks Start there, and also talking about some of the new programs that we have coming through the works as well. So whether it's the Indigenous Assist program that we're working on with a whole range of people, in particular the University of Queensland, as well as a piece of work that we're doing around the LGBTI community in partnership with some great organisations, the National LGBTI Alliance, Diverse Voices, Q Life, Switchboard, and the PHN funding for that. So we're really excited to kind of show people, I guess, where we're headed, and particularly around the quality piece that you're saying, and the innovation that we're going through to bring in some of the technological advancements, but also meet some of the community need that we're seeing. So there's a quick poll that'll pop up just asking if you're coming along to the Suicide Prevention Australia conference. Let us know.
And thank you for your support. It's really wonderful, and that knowledge sharing and that innovation area, I think that's where we've got a great future in advancing, at the whole cause for suicide prevention. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So what we might do then, and thanks so much, Julie, is show you a quick clip. So we've got a brief video to show you that's going to take you through a little bit of Start. Some of the visuals that you will see are the actual videos and the filming that is a part of LivingWorks Start. And then I'm going to introduce you to Tegan Jones, who's going to tell you more. She's one of the designers of the program, and we can get into the specifics about what to expect for the learner as they go through. So you'll see some visuals here, and I've got to say, one of the most exciting things that I found about LivingWorks Start is the quality of the visuals and the quality of the learning. So I hope you feel the same, and we'll show you a quick video now. Looks great, doesn't it? You can see why we're really excited about it. And so let me introduce Tegan now to tell you a little bit more about the specifics and really importantly, the thought process and the depth of layers that went into the design and development of this. So Tegan is our Service Development and Implementation Specialist, is a mouthful, for LivingWorks Education. She's from Sydney, but has only just recently, like in the last few weeks, actually relocated to Calgary, Alberta in Canada, where the LivingWorks Education head office is based. So Tegan has extensive experience in the development of training curricula and suicide prevention programs, and was one of the lead designers of LivingWorks Start. Tegan's, as I say, from Sydney, but in Calgary now, and she's responsible for service development and implementation of the training solution delivered by LivingWorks. She has a Bachelor of Counselling and Bachelor of Behavioural Science from Notre Dame University and a Masters of Counselling from UNE. She has extensive experience managing mental health programs in the NGO sector, developing and delivering training across government health organisations. So welcome and thank you so much, Tegan. We're lucky to have you at LivingWorks.
Thank you for the introduction, Shane. That was quite a mouthful. So pleased to be here this afternoon. For me, it's the evening, it's middle of the day for you. It's so great to be able to come and speak in the Australian webinar. So I'd love to tell you a little bit about LivingWorks Start, how we got where we are and where we're going to go with it, because it's been quite a journey. I think even, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, there were a lot of people that were saying, it's not possible to teach suicide intervention skill online. That is just a task that is so complex and so hard. We can't see how it could be done. But we know that it can be done, and we're in the process of doing it, which is very exciting. I guess we really have been in the works of creating this program at LivingWorks over the last 3 or 4 years. A lot of that effort has come in the last 18 months, which has culminated in LivingWorks Start, which is now live and available through the website livingworks.net/start. One of the the things that we really wanted to consider when we began creating this program is how do we not just stick in the realm of awareness? How do we teach real skill so that people can walk out of having done their training feeling equipped with a model that's simple enough that they can refer to it easily and to be able to follow it, but something concrete enough that they feel like if I was concerned about someone in my community, I would be able to do something and know the steps I need to take to be able to support them. So that was our big task. How do we teach skill, not just awareness? How do we engage people and meet them where we're at? So it's very clear that we needed a tech solution because that's where a lot of our world is at now. We needed a tech solution to meet them where they're at. And suicide's a tricky topic. It takes a lot of bravery for people to walk into a training room and be prepared to sit for half a day or 2 days and talk about suicide. It's hard. So I think we have a real opportunity when we can meet people where they're at, perhaps in the privacy of their own homes, in the privacy of their own mobile phone as they sit on a bus or a train coming home, to be able to learn these fundamental foundational skills about suicide. And perhaps that would encourage them to take up even more training and another role within this realm of saving lives from suicide. So that was one of the things that we started the development of LivingWorks Start with. That was a bit tricky. We were trying to think, well, how would we pitch this program? What level would we be trying to talk about? Are we talking about this as an introductory course? Are we talking about it as basic skills, a 101 of suicide intervention? We really decided that we're really talking about foundational skills. These skills are really core to being able to identify that someone may have thoughts of suicide and be able to respond to them. And that a lot of the other work that we would do in the realm of suicide intervention really starts with the foundation of the skills that are taught in LivingWorks Start. So what are they? We explored developing a model. We call it the task model. This is your task to do when you are noticing that someone might be struggling. So the first step we talk about is we tune in. What do we notice? Do we notice we tune into something that's maybe not sitting quite right with us? We then really want to teach people to ask about suicide, to not be afraid to say the words, are you thinking of killing yourself? Are you thinking about suicide? Because that's the real heart of the issue. We then encourage people to be able to state that suicide is serious. We don't need people to feel like they need to fix all of the problems. That's not realistic. It's not something that someone can, even try to begin to learn to do on an online course. And it's not even their role if you are doing a full intervention. But we do need people to be able to say, wow, you're thinking about suicide. That's really serious. And use that seriousness as a reason to get the person to help. To be able to connect to either someone that has a higher level of intervention training, for example, ASIST training that could do a full safety plan with that person. Perhaps it's connect to a helpline, to Lifeline, to suicide callback service, to a counsellor or professional, a doctor, someone that's able to provide further care and safety planning for that individual. So that's the real core of what we're trying to teach through LivingWorks Start. In the early days, we really wanted to understand if those concepts would resonate with our potential learners. So we did a lot of testing across Australia, Canada, and the United States, as well as some people in the UK and other regions, to check out, is our language right? Is this making sense for you? Do these concepts work for you? And we did some tweaking based on that feedback. Some of the concepts that we're using in face-to-face training, they work in face-to-face training because there's a facilitator there and they can be explained clearly and unpacked. In online training, we don't have that same capacity to really unpack some concepts. So we reframed them and we bundled them a bit differently based on that feedback. We then really went into looking at program design. We decided we needed to make sure that the training was one that was going to be engaging. that it was going to be practical, and that it was going to support a range of levels of challenge, but also safety for learners. So we designed a tool that first begins with tackling some awareness information around suicide. We then took a model which we call didactic simulation debriefing, which is the whole foundation of how we built the program. So we do a bit of teaching. We teach the concept. We then give people an opportunity to hear about that concept from the point of view of someone who has thoughts of suicide. What types of things might they be concerned about at that point in the process? What types of things would be there potentially on their mind that we should be aware of? We then take people through a range of simulation. So the first simulation occurs through text message conversation. We know that interventions now are no longer face-to-face or on the phone. The last 6 interventions that I personally have done have been via text message. So we know that we need to start also modelling how these conversations might go in a text-based simulation. So we use that first. And we use that first especially because it's a slightly less challenging way to learn each of those steps. We do a bit of debriefing after that simulation, and then the learner moves on into doing a video simulation where they really engage in a really realistic scenario to be able to support the individual that is on screen for them. So they go through that little process for each of those 4 skills: tune in, ask, state, and connect. There are some really fantastic features that have been built into the program to make it a really engaging and almost gripping sort of program to lead you through and to make it feel really real. So we've done a few things. We've built functions that if someone's watching a video, they might be able to take notes along the way of what they observe, things that might be standing out to them that they're tuning into. Maybe that's a sign that someone's thinking about suicide. We've built in tools where they can choose the responses into text message simulations. We've built in tools where the individual can record themselves saying the word out, "Are you thinking about suicide?" And then being able to hear themselves back and reflect based on our reflective debriefing, reflect on, wow, how did that come across? Was I really nervous? Could I have put that differently? And have the opportunity to redo it if they want to try again. It's just practice. So a lot of those things have been built into the model. We then give people the opportunity to practice on a whole range of different scenarios and in a number of different ways, sometimes by watching another person do an intervention or having one connecting conversations and answering some questions along the way. Other times using that recording or text simulation practice for the scenario. So that's a little bit about, I guess, the core of the program. We've done a range of tests along the way with different pilot groups. We've received fantastic, helpful input from a number of people, some of our partners over at Lifeline, different PHNs. We had a wonderful pilot working group with a group of individuals from the Australian Defence Force, which was really wonderful for us as well. So that was a long spiel from me. Shane, I might see if there's anything else you'd particularly like me to touch on. That's a bit of a model of how the program looks.
Look, I think it's a really good overview, Tegan. It was incredible to hear the thought and the planning and the development that's gone into LivingWorks Start. One of the things that I love about the program, I've got to say, and I've heard a few people comment about this that have done the program, is there's this really thoughtful little piece. It's quite important, which is that you get a chance to record your own voice. So you get a chance to practice literally asking about suicide or using the language, but then you hear yourself back. And there's this little piece that I love, Tegan, that your design development team put in that encourages people and that says, look, we know that you don't like the sound of your own voice, which is so true. Like, you know, when you hear yourself on your voicemail or something, I always think, oh, that's not me.
Especially when you're nagging at the kids.
Yeah, that's right. And they're recording you and playing it back. So this is what you sound like, Mum. But I love that even that has been built in to say, look, you know, okay, we get it. You don't like the sound of it, but really just hear this back so you can start to get a sense of in using that particular skill, what it's going to sound like for a person with thoughts of suicide. It's not a question, Tegan, but I guess it's a sense of how deep that thought has gone into the development and the user experience of the program.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I guess we want people comfortable in their learning, because we know that people can't learn and uptake skill really well if they're feeling stressed out about what they're doing. And dealing with the topic of suicide is stressful enough. That's challenging for people. So we really wanted to try and make it as supportive an environment as we could. There's a couple of other things that probably on that note that I'd love to mention about the program. One of those is throughout the program, we have some coaching that's provided through a narration. Some of that is in the main teaching components of the program, but there's also this little function, which I really love, called the hope button. And it's there as kind of an optional add-on that if you're struggling with content at this point in the program, or if there's something you want to do a deeper dive into, you can hit that hope button, and there's more bits of wisdom that often sort of link to those things that might actually be already going on in your mind as you approach that type of content. And there's a couple of other things that are worth mentioning as well. One of them is that there's a resources hub built into our platform that's accessed through the training. So at the top of the screen, there's always a button that says Find Safety. So that we know that people might struggle. People might bring things up about themselves, concerns for themselves, concerns for someone else they know. So we also want to make safety a priority and make sure that it's there, always available and visible in their experience. And that's a really cool little tool. It's a tool where you can type in the country that you're in. It'll provide you with information about what are the crisis phone numbers in your country, whether that's the emergency services or a crisis line. It allows you to add in some notes of who's in your personal support network that you might be able to lean on in a time when you're struggling. And then it also provides a range of other suggestions around different things that might be an issue for you and where you could find suggestions for where you might be able to find help for that. Then when you get to the bottom, you can spit it out into an email to yourself or someone else or download the sheet. That's a really cool little tool so that you've got something tangible throughout the program as well to be able to access safety resources.
Love it, Tegan. We've got a lot of questions coming through, so I might ask you a couple now if I can, because I want to try and get through as many as we can. A really good question here, and a simple one. How can LivingWorks Start be adapted for Australian audiences? Yeah,
great question. And we know that in its launch state, it's a rather American-sounding program. In some of the practice scenarios, we do have Australian content and we do have British content as well. But the body of the program is largely North American sounding. The beauty about doing this type of online development is that we constantly have the ability to develop it, to evolve it and to grow it. And that's definitely our plan. So the actual entire LivingWorks Start program is designed to be able to be personalised based on the information that you enter into your profile at the beginning of the program. So you enter your country, age range, profession, a few things like that. So the design is that over time, we are working on our end to build out a whole library of other resources and assets. So more Australian narration, videos and simulations that hit across different age ranges, professions, demographics. And then based on the selections that people make, they'll get a very personalised feeling of the program. Different simulations will be brought in, different voices will be brought in. People will have some ability to pick and choose a little bit about what their learning preference is and the content that they see. So that's definitely in our roadmap. We're actively working towards it. Some more Australianised content is definitely very high priority for us.
Absolutely, and I think here in Australia we're going to be recording the coaching narration fairly soon with an Australian accent. It'll be the same language, but just having that barrier for some folks is really important. So we'll be doing that sooner than later, which will be exciting. Another question is kind of on the same line. This is from Beck, who says, can we personalise the simulations or request new versions? Like, if we want to use it in our school, it would be cool to have all the scenarios focused on young people and teachers and parents, for example. Which, Tegan, I think kind of goes to what you're saying there before, where if it is as you're putting in your profile, things can individualise and personalise. But if an organisation or a department or someone like that wants to look at how can we tailor Start, then that's also something that we're very keen to talk to folks about.
Absolutely. So one of our key considerations in our design of this is how we might be able to customise this for organisations, departments, areas on request, and work alongside businesses or organisations or communities to develop something that really meets their needs. So we have a whole white label package that we'll be able to pick and choose from and develop a really customised approach for individual communities or businesses. So that will include things like being able to co-brand LivingWorks plus the organisation as well. Being able to provide maybe a welcome message. If you are in a school district, then maybe it's the principals giving a welcome message or someone significant. Maybe it's even a head student giving that welcome message. We'd be able to work with specialised scenarios, specialised content. The really beautiful thing about the design of this program is that it's really built in quite a modular way. So we can replace in and out different characters. We can replace in and out different practice scenarios and simulations quite simply. So we can build out a suite, and we'll be able to make components that are created in some areas available in other areas as well, to really provide a wide library of resources that would be available. And in that as well, we'd be able to provide the opportunity for organisations to add their own specialised helping resources, whether that's an EAP or school counsellor, anything that's relevant as a helping resource in their area. And we'd also be able to provide support to add in any policies around responses or any response protocols that are important to an organisation into that. We can also consult with our development team and an organisation to look at, well, how do your response protocols potentially match up with the teaching in this program? What might we need to inform people of as we present both about how it gets implemented in your particular setting with your particular policies?
I think that's a really, really good point. Right now, LivingWorks is working with a number of hospitals around the country, 3 or 4 at the moment that I know of, who have rolled out ASIST and Safe Talk training for their staff, particularly their clinical staff, and are using the ASIST PAL framework and the safety plan framework as part of their practice. So not only is it about training, but it's about saying, well, when you're doing your clinical notes, your safety planning, then using those frameworks that are evidence-based so that it's tied right from training all the way through to practice. And having Start now included in that piece will be really important. I want to stay with that evidence piece for a moment. We've had a few questions about this. I'll just pick one. Nathan has asked, is there any published evidence on LivingWorks Start? And this was another part that's quite exciting. And Tegan, I'm wondering just finally, can you tell us a little bit about the study that's underway at the moment with Laura Shannonhouse?
Yeah. So there's a paper on its way. It's being written at the moment as evidence supporting this program. The entire development of the program was evidence informed. It was based on best practice information available in the fields of suicidology, adult education, and online learning, as well as all of the learnings that we've collected from our other programs. The evidence base is really important to us. It's really important to us. It's one of our biggest focuses at LivingWorks. So even pre-release, during our pilot phase, Dr. Laura Shannonhouse from Georgia State University, as well as about 4 other researchers from different institutions across the United States, began figuring out, how do we create evidence base around this program? How do we determine whether it's effective and whether the learning's being taken up? So a tool has been developed by Dr. Shannonhouse and her team. It has been validated to demonstrate that the tool itself can tell us effectively whether the training is being uptaken, whether people are being able to understand the skills and apply them appropriately in different situations. And there's a range of evidence that's building at the moment to support that, but initial findings are being put together by that team at the moment, and we're hoping to have that come out very soon. So I look forward to being able to share that out. Maybe even we could send that out to this group of attendees when we get that made available to us. There's also other things that we're really keen to do. The great thing about being online is that we get access to data that we've rarely had before. We get access to be able to see exactly how many people have done the training, how many people are in progress, where people got stuck, whether there's things that we can do to support them to get through the training, whether there are things that it seems like people are finding challenging, and then we can engage with our learners and work to improve those processes. And we can also do a lot more follow-up to see whether people have implemented the skills that they learned in the program. And we know anecdotally from a range of our pilot users, I know of at least 2 or 3 people that have already used the model in interventions with people in their lives. I know of those people that have been able to think back to what those steps are and apply it in a real world situation, which is really encouraging for us. But our evidence work continues. We're going to be doing a specific pilot as well to really dig deep into how safe and effective the program is to be using with 13 and 14-year-olds as well, to be able to teach skills to a younger demographic, because we know that young people are having these conversations and these concerns frequently. So we have early evidence around that, and there's a bigger piece of work that's going to happen there for young people as well.
Thanks, Tegan. It's the idea of the big data, availability that we haven't had in the past is so exciting. It's one thing to ask people, were you satisfied with the training? It's another to even measure things like knowledge retention and skills development. But being able to measure the impact of the training in a way that says how many people have actually done an intervention and how did they go? That's something for me that I think will change the space. As Tegan says, it's very anecdotal. We know it works, and we've seen the evidence of that. Being able to track that through big data globally and measure it and then adapt and learn from it is probably the most exciting part of all this, I think.
And above that,
next webinar.
And above that, from all organisations and from the whole sector, this data collection and data management is going to inform us of where we're going and what we should be doing and what we're doing well and what we can do better. So it's a critical key piece of the future, I think, getting effectiveness. Yeah.
And we're interested in speaking to local research institutions here in Australia that are interested in this piece and supporting the research and the evidence, or even just doing your own independent research on some of the impact of this, because the data that falls out will need to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And as Tegan mentioned, there's universities and colleges overseas that are looking at that, and so we're talking to a few universities now here in Australia, but certainly open to hearing more opportunities to research and to build on the evidence base that exists. There's a lot of questions, so I'm going to quickly reach through a few. Just on the evidence base, one of the documents you've got in your resource centre there that you can download is the Madeline Gould study of the effectiveness of ASIST. And we put that out there because it gives a sense of the kind of depth of evidence that we have around the programs that have informed LivingWorks Start. Not many people have heard of the study. It was quite groundbreaking at the time, and it was a study of the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline in the United States that looked at people who are trained in ASIST, those telephone counsellors, the impact and the difference that it made to callers, so not the counsellors themselves. So they're able to actually measure a statistical difference in suicidality, depression and life outcomes for people who called a lifeline who were trained by ASIST and by LivingWorks programs. So we've got that up there for people because we did have some questions about that evidence base. The other part, I guess, in terms of the evidence is, of course, the Suicide Prevention Australia, the research hub, the best practice hub. We obviously are aiming to have START listed. We are so far the only organisation that has 2 programs on there. I should do a little plug there, which is good, pretty cool. And so encourage, obviously, all organisations to get on and apply for that. that one. Speaking of suicide prevention Australia, so the poll looks like 40% of people who are online with us at the moment, there's quite a few, are coming along to the conference. So please come and see us. That's great news. Gee, they've grown. They're so good, their conferences.
That's fantastic.
So come and see us and come and spend some time talking to us about it. A few practical questions. So how much is LivingWorks Start? So it's $37.50 at the moment in Australia. And when you go to livingworks.net/start, you can see you can purchase the Australian licence. However, we've been talking to organisations who obviously want to purchase a lot of training. And so there are, to answer another question, there are certainly discounts for bulk orders. There are obviously different ranges for that. Some organisations are looking at 100,000 licences, for instance, and others are looking at 4. But we want to make sure that everyone accesses it. $37.50 is cheap, I would say, for the kind of skills training we're seeing, but it's also quite different to what else is out there. And there's a reason for that. It is different, we would say, than other programs. We don't have much longer to go. Last quick things. I just need to thank, obviously, Julie and Tegan. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you all for dialing in. I need to acknowledge the lead designers. So Dr. Trina Anastasia from LivingWorks, Dr. Renee Schmidt, obviously Tegan, and Kim Backer, who are part of the design team, as well as every trainer and every participant ever who has been involved in LivingWorks, who has filled out those trainer reports or surveys. All of that knowledge and all that feedback has gone into our program. So thank you so much for that. We're going to put one last poll up quickly now if we can. I think we've got time for it. And that poll is now, with everything you've heard about LivingWorks Start, how likely are you to complete the program? I think it was only 10% of people so far have. So we're just keen to get a sense of what do you think. There's a lot of questions here that we haven't been able to get to, so we will answer all of them and we'll post that information on our website. But please get in touch with us at info@livingworks.com.au. Call our Tuggerah office, 1300 738 382, or just jump online and find us and get in touch. We are very keen to talk to you about how you can roll out the LivingWorks training programs in your community. Thanks so much, Julie.
Thank you. It's been wonderful.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Shane.
All the best.